guys. Check the new feed. I just shared it to my page. Okay. Aloha. Thank you so much for having me, Destiny. It's an absolute honor and privilege and duty to be here amongst so many amazing speakers and souls. So with that said, I guess I just have the talking stick, and to confirm you guys can hear me okay? Perfect, sweet. Well, again, my name is Brendan, and I am known across the internet by a couple different names, one of them being my YouTube handle, which is Skull Babylon, and I'm also known as Wolf Shield, which is like something I can even talk about within this broadcast related to the synchronicity and the power of names and everything like that. And also within the context of what we were talking about, ParadigmShiftCentral.com, as you mentioned, is a project that I've been building since about 2009. But obviously the story kind of begins in some ways long before this lifetime, so to speak, which is something I think many of us can relate to when we sort of step back and look at the magic of this reality and the layers of the stories that it is that we are weaving and creating here. So just to confirm, what's the time frame? So I would have until about 6:45 my time. Is that correct? Just to confirm, Destiny. Or I think Destiny may have hopped off, or maybe she's still there. She's a wizard. So there we go. Okay, perfect. Awesome. Well, again, thank you everyone for tuning into this, and much love to all of those who I perhaps haven't even fully connected with previously up until this point. It's a big world wide web out there, the big intranet that connects us all, and to be able to use the next hour, what I want to be able to do as a presenter is to be able to, again, share my story, but through sharing my story, be able to give you like an awesome piece of inspiration that you can weave into your story as a sort of reflection of like my own understanding of how this reality works, why I do things like free hugs, why am I adamant about creating conscious media through my YouTube channel, and more so than that, building a global team of shifters. So for what you mentioned within the introduction of this broadcast, a shifter is sort of a term that we've created within the context of the Paradigm Shift Central project that is basically referring to someone who is intentionally helping shift consciousness. So even within the concept of like helping give ourselves, it's not that we need labels, but when you sort of get into the gamification with something, you really realize how titles and labels are actually something fun because they represent like an archetype that you can sort of embody, or even perhaps kind of like a team that you are a part of the shared momentum of. So by using the power of the internet and storytelling over the past several years, what I've been doing is I've been encouraging people to create physical paradigm shift communities across the globe. And physical paradigm shift communities at their core are based around open-minded discussion and meditation circles. So even coincidentally, synchronistically, at the time of this broadcast, literally at the end of this broadcast, I'm out the door to go to my local paradigm shift meetup, which is Paradigm Shift London, Ontario, Canada, which is where I am currently located. What I want to be able to do is like just kind of get into like a bit of the core of again, parts of my own story, but just providing you with sort of my own vision of why I do things like free hugs, why my understanding of synchronicity is like what allows me to step into the actions of free hugs with so much. There was one of the presenters before us, I believe Tessa was her name. She was talking about the idea that opposed to this sort of dichotomy of fear versus love, there's also this story of fear versus trust. And that is something that I actually wanted to continue on within my presentation in terms of like doing free hugs isn't so much just me like blindly going out there and being like, oh, I hope this works, but rather it comes from an intuitive knowing that I know this is going to work because I have experienced this time and time again through my own, and also like relative to my own intuitive understanding of how synchronicity works. So let's just kind of like step back a bit, because to be able to, again, like kind of see the world through the lens in which I perceive it, though it is constantly shifting. And that's really all I can do. I can share with you my point of view, and invite you to be able to say like, oh, okay, maybe there's parts of that I can integrate into my own perception and understanding of reality. So in terms of like the magic, let me just sort of talk about the magic first, and then we'll talk about the synchronicity, and then we'll talk about the why I do free hugs. And then from there, I'll talk a little bit about the recent expansion of my own narrative, which as a shifter, and this is something I'll get into even further, as a Jedi and a light guardian. Again, these are sort of titles that we can step into, roles we can step into. I've taken this even further to the point where a lot of what I've been doing over the years is inviting people to also do things like free hugs and intentional acts of compassion and creativity, which we refer to as shiftivism within the project, but to build a global team of superheroes, to build a global team of real world superheroes, people who are aware of how synchronicity works, that it gives them the power of love and the power of trust and the power of the heart to go out there and to literally create new realities through one-to-one interaction, through building community. And this expands further relative to the tools that we have available through the Paradigm Shift Central project and the platform existing in the first place. But taking this even further, within my own story, I've actually stepped into this not new, but I've been doing it for a while, but basically Mystic Spider-Man is this new aspect that I've introduced into the timeline, which is basically me doing free hugs while dressed up as my own version of Spider-Man that actually has its own story. So it's like, I'll get into it a little bit later, but basically it's like the Spider-Man who has spent time training and studying with Doctor Strange and uses the awareness of magic and synchronicity and the mystic arts to be able to connect with people within this dream that we are awakening into, and to be able to help assist with the shift in consciousness and remind people of the superpower within. So that's kind of where this talk will get to, but let me lead up to how I even got to that point, what led me to get to that point. So again, when I do talks like these, I am honored to be able to do it, because I know every single time it just reminds us of how powerful, inspiration is. And inspiration is the fuel for change. And every now and then people will come up to me in the same way they may come up to you, Destiny, or anybody else listening to the broadcast, and they may just be able to say to you and be like, hey, I really appreciate what you're doing. I really appreciate what you're sharing. It's helping me step further into my own self by seeing you living your own life, by seeing you living in your own way. So in doing this, the ripples create waves. I invite people to not only connect with the Paradigm Shift Central project and the ongoing story that we're weaving, but more so than that, I just invite people to continue to step into their potential as co-creators within this dream. So getting into the magic part of it, what is the magic? I think for me, like within this story of us waking up, it is waking up to this understanding, this innate understanding that there is more to this reality than meets the eye, or there is more to this reality that is commonly been told. And so on the surface, again, there's multiple layers to this story. On the surface of modern Western culture or anywhere that you are in the world, it's just like people going around and they're buying things and consumers and they're building houses and they're farming and they're falling in love and they're being born and they're dying again, and so forth and so on. And it's this very sort of like consistent physical story that exists through this illusion that we call time. But then kind of beyond that layer of the dream, there is this other aspect to this bigger story, which we often refer to as magic, because we can't fully necessarily quantify it in the same way we commonly like to. So the magical part of this is the idea of recognizing and intuitively knowing that, yes, we have in fact come into this physical plane from somewhere else. And the somewhere else isn't actually somewhere separate, but it is actually something that is hidden within the same space, And this is where the magic, through my own studies and my own exploration, really became self-evident through the research of dream exploration and through the investigation of dreams and just our nature as multidimensional beings, which again, some of the other speakers have hit upon. And so when we study dreams, that is a great way to begin to understand magic. And so again, just kind of continuing, there's Tessa as well. She was talking about the Hermetic principles within this broadcast as well. And so like within the Hermetic principles, you have these teachings and these laws. And like one of them is like sort of like the idea that all is mind. And so that's like an interesting concept, and a lot of people can live like with that knowing. But for me, like that concept grounds itself through an understanding of how the dreams work. So when we begin to study dreams, we realize that within this space, like that is where our thoughts are actively creating. And so again, the basic simple way, and I'm just going to explain this kind of as coherently, concisely, and just intuitively as I can. As I've said many times before in other broadcasts and just people in general, to me, the dream space can be thought of as being something closer to where we actually come from. And then we come into this physical reality. And then every time when we sleep, we go back there, but it is the same place where we go to before we are born and after we die. And so the dream space is the realm of the imagination, is the realm of the magi, is the magical realms. So again, you know, like, and even imagination and like that word imagine, like I am magic, you're kind of saying. So it's like imagine, you're like I am magic, and getting into the idea of like how much words actually matter. Again, you know, spell casting and all that, that's part of the magic we'll talk about a little bit within this talk. But again, you know, this dream space, it's the inner worlds. It's the places that are not just like literally like inside of us from a hyperdelic perspective, thinking of the mind almost as like an advanced form of spiritual technology, as well as dreams as being an advanced form of spiritual technology, that are there to be able to allow like the human consciousness to fully exhibit its potential within this reality. So like, you know, through our process of living this life, intuitively, time and time again, we continue to wake up to this knowing that, yes, we are active co-creators within this reality. And yes, this reality is an extension of the dream. And knowing that it is an extension of the dream goes back to that idea of knowing and understanding that all is thought. Because again, through the dream exploration and lucid dreaming, you can experience this. There's a gnosis to it, a knowledge through experience, where if you think of something, you manifest it. If you think of an apple, it appears. If you think you can fly, you can fly. If you think of the pyramids, you can teleport to the pyramids. And so that is what many people would refer to as the magic. And so part of the magic in this is understanding that there is a part of us that is very much physically embedded into this world, yet also expanding beyond the physical world. And this is where you get into the idea of like, yes, like call it the dream space, call it the imagination, call it the astral planes. This is the space. It's not just like, I think it's like a space that is made up of many spaces, and in a way it kind of fractals itself into compartmentalization factors. But again, like this is the space where we are continuing to operate from a non-temporal perspective. And this is where you start to get into the synchronicity of things, because the synchronicity in all this is really opening up to the magic that we exist beyond the present moment. And so like existing beyond the present moment is a big part of what allows us to understand, and again, going back to the idea of trust, how synchronicity works. So for what I intend to do with my mission, my duty, my choice in being here in this incarnation is to help carry with me the story of this magic coming forward into this world. And this will appear to different people in different ways, you know, and I think it's important to recognize that there's many gateways in which we can open up into the magic. And so sometimes that is coming through just the medium of a powerful story. And again, like this would be a story such as the resurgence of the light guardians, which is something that I carry with me as well, which again goes into this idea based on what everything I just said, that well, let me just step back a bit, recognizing that, okay, like Earth is a place and we're spirit, soul, call it what you will. We exist within like these higher dimensions, the dream space. Again, try to wrap your head around it in a logical way. And then coming to this Earth, it is the idea that many of us have come to this Earth with that specific intention to be able to help assist with the shift in consciousness. The beautiful thing about it is that the shift in consciousness, there is always something to do. There is an ongoing mission to it. There is an ongoing story to it that continues from one generation to another, to another, to another. And so many of us have intuitively, whether we've created a name for it or not, have intuitively come here to be a shifter, have come here to be a light guardian, have come here from this higher perspective outside of time. To all of us, synchronicity, many of us choose to be here right at this moment, at this time. And when you sort of step back at that moment, it's just like, okay, like, why now? Like, why did we all choose to come here right now? And it seems to be that, yes, within the last like 25 years, yet obviously more than that, there has been an exponential shift. And yes, through the internet and everything, that is the dream awakening to itself. And more people are having these natural psychedelic experiences, such as having a lucid dream, such as getting into their own like centered space of heart expansion through meditation and self-love and you know, even trauma and everything like that. All of these are sort of aspects within the story that are helping us awaken to other parts of ourselves. But again, there's this other part of the narrative, which is the magic, which is the part of like literally us coming from however far you want to imagine, not just in a physical sense, but almost like in a journey sense. You know, we have journeyed so far to come to this one point at this one time. And again, you know, it is this collection of souls that have come here with that shared objective, with that not just a job, but also like a dance and a celebration. And I think that's a big part of what we're doing here. And again, you know, it goes into the idea that much of what we are doing here should be thought of with the foresight of it being for the generations to come, which I think many of us already do, but just reiterating that out loud, you know, 7 generations behind, 7 generations ahead kind of thing. So moving along, a lot of us have kind of felt this intuitive calling to want to help change the world. And that is an awesome thing. And so back in the day, back in like 2009, when I created this club, and 6:09 on the clock is a synchronicity sync for me right now. I mean, obviously it was going to get there, but just acknowledging it. So just allowing myself to kind of recognize my own synchronicity in this moment as an opportunity for me to tune in and just be present and not just overthink what I need to say, but just allow myself to say it, to allow myself to be a conduit for the all-win, the flow to come through me. So good job, Brendan. You're doing great. So yay, go team. Okay, so back in the day when I started this project, I had my own awakening process. And this was like back when I was like in my early 20s, and I had my own psychedelic experiences even, and I had my own a handful of lucid dream experience, but I was really interested in lucid dreaming. I was really interested in consciousness. I was really interested in this esoteric knowledge, and the synchronicities were becoming more rampant for me. And it got me to the point where I'm like, okay, this isn't something that is going to stay hidden forever. This is something that is coming up through each of us. So what I want to be able to help do is I want to be able to create a path for myself that is going to be able to invite people to be able to awaken to this knowledge within themselves. And again, this is very like everyone within the summit, I think, is kind of doing the same thing in their own way. And so the way how I set out to do this was through the power of synchronicity, was through my understanding of synchronicity, and the synchronicity behind it being, if I build it, they will come. So again, what started this whole like objective of Paradigm Shift Central began as one club in my college. And then what I would do, I would put up like posters around my school. And then even then I would start doing free hugs, and I would do free hugs to not only connect with people in the moment of free hugs, but also to invite them to the meetings that we had at the time within the college. So, you know, we would hug, and then we would talk for a bit, and then I'd be like, oh, there's a meetup group that you can come check out. And then in addition to that, eventually it also evolved into the incorporation of the shift buttons, which are a thing related to the synchronicity and how I've continuously sort of incorporated this aspect of holographic technology into my abilities as a shifter, into my abilities as a real world superhero. So just going back to the synchronicity of it, again, the synchronicity of me creating this club came from the simple idea of acknowledging myself as a non-temporal being, acknowledging myself existing beyond that present moment, and acknowledging and trusting that there was a future that already existed in which a bunch of people had already come out to that meeting. And so all I had to do was show up and meet the universe halfway, and to be a portal to help create that synchronistic initiation to allow them to be invited in the first place, if that was meant to happen at that time. Perhaps they would just see a poster, you know. That's kind of the beauty of it, is that like what I want to do is I kind of want to put forth an honest effort and trust that the universe is kind of like allowing the right people to run into me at the right place at the right time, because that's kind of the idea, is that everyone's kind of awakening awakening to this multidimensional nature and to our potential, and awakening and becoming better dreamers within the dream. And through doing that, we are able to show up better for our community and for our family, and we become more inspired creators, more inspired artists, or heartists is the phrase that I prefer to use. And then again, you know, from there, that's what changes the world. That's the inspiration. Like, what does the world look like when a larger percent of the population is conscious and awake and aware of their environments and themselves, and actively spreading compassion and continuing to ripple that forward? Again, you know, like in my mission of doing this, I'm like, okay, how do I change the world? Like, this is a big thing, but that's what I want to do. That was my calling. And that was me kind of resonating with like my own story and my own magic of kind of like archetypes of like Link from Legend of Zelda and everything like that, which is something I can get into a little bit later, the synchronicity between me and Link, or just any of these heroes' journeys that we sort of see, these dreamers awakening, awakening to their duty and awakening to the idea that, you know, what can we do to be of service to others? And so one of the simple ways to answer that question is like, how can I change the world? By building community and by creating sacred space for people to see themselves, for people to be able to naturally go, aha, I get it now, without me always necessarily having to tell them. And that's kind of the beautiful thing of it, is that, you know, again, prior to the project, I had my own experiences, and even through like my own like psychedelic experiences, there were moments through that where it was no longer, you know, this idea of like, yes, I know this world's magic. Yes, I can look at a tree and see like the fractal branches of it and recognize that as above, so below. The branches of a tree are the same like branches within the veins in my arms, and the lakes and the rivers, and everything's a microcosm and a macrocosm. That is seeing the fractal nature of reality. That's awakening to the magic as well. Again, you know, magic is sort of a subjective term. Sometimes it's just kind of like seeing more of the picture that we previously hadn't seen before. But we realize that magic is the entire picture. Everything, there's nothing outside of magic when you sort of realize that like this reality is functioning upon the core concepts of magic. But again, you know, like through my own experience, like I was aware of synchronicity. I was aware of the universe being a non-temporal thing. I was aware that like, you know, certain things were meant to cross paths at certain times, and realities already existed, and all I had to do was sort of align myself to them and move forward with that trust. But through my own psychedelic experiences and just my own knowing in general, it was no longer faith for me to assume that there was like absolute certainty in terms of like just how incredibly hyperdelic and spiritual this reality was. And basically, so the best way I can describe this is understanding that like those of us who have seen visionary art such as Alex Gray and everything like that, you see those images. That's actually what reality looks like, though. And a lot of a lot of people know this. A lot of people are remembering this. And again, that's a big part of this journey, is a journey of remembering, which is why it's so awesome, because again, a lot of the experiences within this path are us kind of going to ourselves and going, oh, like that sounds familiar, or like, oh, that's an interesting idea. Like it's kind of, you know, the records are within inside of us. But again, like what we see in the Alex Gray images, that magic is what reality actually looks like on certain levels. And so what we perceive this reality as is a reality that is perceived through the lens of filters. And so like these filters, you know, like you can just think of like the scientific aspects of how your eyes work and stuff like that. You know, they say, oh, the eyes only see like X percentage of like the electromagnetic spectrum and microwaves and gamma waves and stuff like that. And we know animals can see these and stuff, but there's more to it. And so like having seen this for myself, and as like my own experience of being able to literally see the code behind the matrix, to me, like the very simplest way I can describe it was like literally, like this isn't figuratively, this is very literally me explaining what it looked like. It was literally like infinite sacred geometry made of light, infinitely unfolding upon itself. Like that is what reality looks like. So like reality, you know, you take like an infinity, like in its shape, and you add it to itself, and then you expand that and go, and you blow that into infinite directions, and you look at it sideways, and it looks like a sound wave and stuff like that. Like that is part of the magic and stuff like that. And again, hyperdelic is kind of the best way I can explain this. So this aspect of reality is real. this aspect of reality is something we are observing, but we don't always acknowledge that we are observing. This aspect of reality, from my best guess and understanding intuitively, is actually what our third eye is meant to interact with and see all the time. And it kind of goes beyond just the physical and stuff too. So again, you know, like if you were walking around with your third eye open, quote unquote, you would be able to see that there's no such thing as empty space. You would be able to see like the vibrations and energies and the emotions creating waves, because we literally are in this ocean of energy. So being aware that this is happening all the time is being aware of the magic, is being aware that this reality is so incredibly psychedelically hyperdelic, potent and beautiful, and love and light, and we literally are beings of light, is a very powerful idea. But again, for me to just say that, those are just words. And I always want to invite people to allow themselves to explore this deeper within themselves through their own gnosis, through their own direct experiences. And that's where things such as lucid dreaming and meditation and acts of compassion can help us move further towards this own awakening within our own journey and everything like that. So moving forward within the concepts of what I've created with this project, again, you know, if you build it, they will come. If you step onto a street corner and do free hugs, the right people will cross with you at the right time. And so what I continued to do was basically, I made it my mission as a shifter to be a superhero of synchronicity and magic, you could say, to be like a literal Jedi. And so again, that's part of the magic in this, is realizing we literally are Jedi, like pillars of light. The Jed are like literally like a part of a group from ancient Egypt that were literally there to like help shift the consciousness of the world. And they literally, the term Jedi, like Jed, literally, or D-Jedi, literally means pillars of light. So part of the magic of this story is like, okay, these ancient sort of esoteric knowledges and teachings and everything like that, they're all coming forward. They're all coming back into this reality, and they're coming forward oftentimes through movies and through like media. And that's again like the symbolism of the dream seeing and showing itself to itself. It's really beautiful when you can kind of like look at the same way you would read like a tarot deck and kind of like acknowledge that how the universe is communicating to us through that, through the synchronicity of a tarot deck, is also happening within all mediums. It's also happening within movies. It's happening within music. It's happening in whatever you may perhaps be tuned in with. But at the same time, acknowledging that not all media is doing that. Some media is there to tune us out. But I invite people to explore and make a habit of spending their time and their energy investing in the media that tunes them in. So part of what I've been doing with the Paradigm Shift Central project is creating media that does just that. And not only just creating it, but inviting people to co-create it, and inviting and creating a platform where people can share this. And so as I kind of like take the different strands of what I'm talking about here and weaving this into the web of the image of Paradigm Shift Central, at this point, it is literally a real world interactive game to help shift consciousness. And on the online website, we have it as a social media platform that's kind of like an alternative to Facebook, but it's different in its own way. And it is a platform where people are invited to be able to document their own spiritual journeys and share them through the creation of what we refer to as quest journals, and also through the creation of conscious articles and inviting them to create videos. And we do online broadcasts and hangouts. We had a dream class the other day. We do team building circles. We have global meditations, and we have meetings for the admins of different paradigm shift communities across the globe. And that's something that, again, within the magic of this, part of what I want to do is like to be able to, again, be able to create a story that other people could see, so that they could be able to say, hey, basically I want to be able to say, if this can happen here, if this can happen where I am in my college, in my city, it can happen anywhere. And that was the idea, is to sort of give people like a bit of a template that they can follow. That was very simple. And again, like the paradigm shift communities, even people listening to this, you're invited, because I think that's one of the powerful things we can do right now, is to be portals ourselves for synchronicity and for us to build community. And again, like the paradigm shift communities are just about finding a place to host the meetings, having regular open-minded discussion, meditation, doing a routine of this, and allowing community to come out. And then you get these ongoing interactions, and that is the magic. You allow people to be mirrors for each other. You allow them to support each other. And it's incredibly beautiful. It's really beautiful. And moving the Paradigm Shift London community over the years has not just changed my life, but it's been my life. It's been, you know, my friends. It's been like the people who I've learned alongside with. It's been these lasting relationships that have grown and evolved over the years. And the beautiful part about this is what I kind of say, and when I encourage people to replicate this. And again, you know, you do things, you create a community, you do things like free hugs, you invite people to the community, you have meetings, and you repeat. And you just kind of like that's it. That's like really all you got to do. And then through this, there's all this other beautiful magic that comes through. But again, you know, like within this, like I want people to realize that connected to the people in their community who they have yet to meet. Like that's the beautiful thing about it. When you just sort of step into the idea of being like, I'm going to be a portal for synchronicity. I'm going to be a portal for consciousness, not just because like, oh, I'm volunteering, but I'm hearing that within myself as part of my agreement as to why I came here within this like school, this journey, this adventure of life, this physical incarnation, this duty, this privilege, this opportunity to be able to be of service and help others. So when you realize this, for many of us, as we do, that again, you know, like we can be a conduit for community, the universe acknowledges this and is like, okay, like let's start sending people their way. And so with me naturally doing my own formulas, it has allowed like hundreds of people, thousands of people to connect locally with the Paradigm Shift London community, and continuing to allow people to be able to connect through other aspects of the project, and people being able to connect with shifters in their communities, and people doing free hugs all across the world. Like that's a beautiful thing, right? Like, you know, we talk about this idea that a single candle, a single flame can light a million candles. In a lot of ways, like I'm honored to be able to acknowledge that the work that I have done has helped represent that. And in the same way that I invite people to continue to be that candle for other candles, to be that flame for other candles. And so a project, I'll just explain kind of like the other aspects of the magic and stuff, and then I want to get into a little bit of my own synchronicity and how I encode it with my own numbers and how that works, and how I invite people to do that, and other parts of the magic within the Paradigm Shift Central project, and then ending off on the Mystic Spider-Man stuff. But again, you know, within me sort of like using my tools available, when I wanted to go out and create this objective, and I will just say this because like I'll just mention it now, and just kind of like putting a period on this real quick. If you guys hadn't checked out yet, on my YouTube channel, you can also find full-length movies that I've done. So in addition to creating like YouTube videos, there's also full-length movies known as the Journey to Lucidity movies. And they are like a conscious movie saga that takes place at a transformational festival. So what I've been doing is I've literally been creating this like ongoing story through these movies over the course of several years. And that in itself is about like the activation of the Light Guardian, which echoes what this is about. But anyways, I just wanted to invite people to do that, and just to share with you guys a little bit of what I've been up to. Back to what I've evolved with the project to be, you know, I want to be able to use my tools effectively to be able to help the world how I can. So doing free hugs is awesome, but I wanted to go even further than that. I wanted to again, you know, hack the matrix with love. I wanted to really become aware of the system and find how I could effectively weave my way into it to be able to help accelerate the shift, connect community, and continue to inspire people. And for me, doing free hugs was awesome, but I always wanted to be able to go beyond what just a common free hug can do, and to take it to the point of free hugs 2.0 is kind of like the basic way I kind of refer to it as. And what the 2.0 is basically, when I created this project, I was like, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a website, and then I'm going to take that website and I'm going to put it on a button. And then I'm going to take some conscious art, and I'm going to put some conscious art on that button, and then I'm going to give that button to people. So rather than like back in the day where like maybe if you had some files you wanted to share with someone, you give them like a DVD. Like, I don't know if you guys ever did that. That was like a thing, right? We would like give each other DVDs, and they would have like videos from the internet on it. This is like back in the day, right? Now you can give people a button, because the way how the universe works is everything's very holographic. So you give them the website, and it links them into the entire community. So like now when I do free hugs, I'll do free hugs. And then these are some of the buttons that I have here. And when people come up, I'll give them a shift button. So again, like these are buttons that are available through the Paradigm Shift Central project, and they're real world tools for helping accelerate the shift. And again, they all just got like a bunch of like conscious symbols on them. So you got like Metatron's cube. Each one is meant to like spark a conversation. So again, you can imagine that wearing these are going to spark synchronicity. People are going to see them. People are going to ask about them. And in that sense, people are invited to share them. People are invited to give them. So the Paradigm Shift Central project has been fundamentally built upon the idea of synchronicity being a real thing that we can not only understand, but work through, work alongside with, utilize, evoke, to be able to connect people in an accelerated fashion. So again, you know, I'm going out, I'm doing free hugs, And then when people come up to me, I'll like say like, here, like you can choose a button. And then they'll be like, oh, and they get really excited because the act of gift giving is a really beautiful thing in itself. And then they'll take that button, they'll go home, they might connect to the website sooner rather than later. They can get involved with the broadcast, they can be inspired, they can contribute to the community, and they can continue to ripple that inspiration further than I may even fully know. And so again, like other people across the world, they have these shift buttons as well. We've been delivering them throughout the Paradigm Shift Central project. And if people are interested, you guys can always get them as well. ParadigmShiftCentral.com, just as a reminder, is the main website with everything. But again, you know, the synchronicity is a very powerful thing. And the way how I think of it is like meeting the universe halfway. And so the synchronicity comes from the idea that we already exist outside of this present moment. And the synchronicity of it is really beautiful because I think in some ways of understanding how synchronicity works, it actually takes a little bit of a paradigm shift in terms of understanding how time works. And so bear with me here because this is like something that for me totally makes sense. So we get into this idea of like, you know, we commonly perceive time moving forward. And then other people get into this idea of saying time is a circle. And we can say that, and that's awesome and everything like that. But I just want to focus in on what that can actually mean. Because if time's in a circle, that means it's going backwards too. And so basically how synchronicity works in a lot of ways, as becomes incredibly obvious in retrospect, is the idea that like the events that occur that we recognize as being synchronistic, you can think of them, you can literally think of it as like the universe engineering itself backwards to how we perceive it. So the way we are perceiving this reality right now as our quote unquote forwards is actually like backwards as to how the universe primarily operates. So basically what will happen is, you know, like it will take me like running into this person at this time on this street corner. And then like from there, it will rewind the tapes and it will send us in opposite directions. And then we'll go about our separate days. I'll go catch my bus. They might have to like drop off something somewhere on the other side of town. But then lo and behold, you hit play and everything kind of like follows through and all the timing's perfect. And then we meet up at the right place at the right time, right at that perfect moment. And so like how that happened was because like that moment of us meeting already existed. And then again, you sort of like rewind things and play it forwards again. And like, that's the synchronicity of it. So like the part of ourselves that you can refer to as the higher self or the daemon. The daemon is kind of like a sort of like a video game kind of terminology, like the player above the player sort of thing, which is kind of interesting because again, getting into the gamification, it gets into this idea of like how much this reality is very much like an online video game, is very much like a massive online multiplayer game. But in that sense, inviting people to really like level up their characters and to recognize that that is their quest and that is their journey to continue to unlock their special abilities. And that's, again, gets into sync with like the superhero aspect that I invite people to activate within themselves. And so, yeah, just kind of, again, like it's really cool to acknowledge the idea that when you go out and do something like free hugs, there are already those interactions between you and those other people that already exist in that future moment. You just have to show up for them. And that's the thing. And see, this is the thing that's really tricky, is that within this entire universe, there still exists in some form the aspect of choice. And so like, a part of you will recognize that, like, be like, okay, you know, like, I know if I go out and do free hugs, there's going to be people who are going to connect with me. But for some reason, like, maybe I'm still like getting over my own kind of like blockages and I haven't fully stepped into it just yet. And then the universe is like kind of like got a reality ready for you. So it's like, if you choose to go out and do free hugs today, and I'm kind of saying this from my own personal experience, if you choose to go out and do free hugs today, like, you'll connect with so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so. And if you don't, that's okay. Like, it's not the end of the story, because there's always going to be another chance for the spirals to come around again, and we'll connect you at a different time. So it's kind of like that idea of like, again, the universe will constantly put out an opportunity to us, but it's our choice to meet the universe halfway. And that is where that, like, the Vesica Pisces of the creation of this reality kind of comes into a very practical sense. Like, we are moving forward with our circle. The future is moving forward with its circle. And then it creates like this overlapping Vesica Pisces, which looks like a seed. And from that seed, that is where a new moment is literally birthed from. That's where a new idea emerges from. It emerges when our circles overlap. Our circles as individual beings and our circles as moments in time, so to speak. So the synchronicity of all this is a very real thing. And again, I think what's really cool is that like you can put out the intention to help evoke synchronicity in the first place. So if you like make it very clear that I'm going to go out and do free hugs today, and I'm going to be there between like this time and this time, or I'm going to give out, you know, like X number of hugs or something, then the universe like takes note of that. It is listening beyond that temporal sense. And it's like, okay, like let me work some magic on this end. So it's and when I say the universe, it's kind of cool because it's not literally just like it's you and the universe. It's like some guy in the chair who you don't understand. It's actually you. Like, and that's kind of the cool thing about it, is that it's developing a relationship with yourself beyond the temporal sense. So like when I'm like doing things like free hugs, you know, I'm kind of like connecting with the idea that like there's like the other parts of me that are coordinating this from the top down perspective in that sense. And that's basically what allows it to all kind of come together. And so again, you know, like that is true in a subjective sense for all of us to be able to explore and discover on our own. So again, the universe communicates to itself through the language of symbols, and synchronicities can occur to us through interactions, meaningful interactions. But again, sometimes the synchronicity will occur, but then we have the free choice to make something of it. Sometimes you may meet that person, or sometimes you'll be sitting across that person on the bus, but you won't engage, but you'll feel something. You'll feel something inside of you. It says like, oh, maybe I should talk to that person. But then for whatever reason you don't. But then maybe you'll see them again next time or at a different location, and that will actually spark you to talk with them then. So it's like, you know, it was always meant to be that way kind of thing. But again, you know, like synchronicity is going to come through meaningful interactions, and they can come through building community. And I think that's a beautiful part, is that when you get into this bigger story of us being, you know, like the light guardians and the light workers coming here to shift the world, we also came in with this natural ability to find each other. And in some ways, it was part of our contract to be able to find each other, to build the tribe in that sense. So when you're doing things like free hugs, this is a great buffer to be able to attract people who are already on that conscious wavelength. And that's why free hugs is such a powerful thing, is because it's an invitation. And so just as a quick tip for free hugs, you know, I invite people when they do free hugs, one of the best ways that I've experienced doing it is, I mean, literally just like standing in one spot works fine. I mean, you can walk around, but basically just like allowing people to come to you. You can make yourself seen, but it would be very just like for me, like not natural to like go around and be like asking people, be like hugs, like anyone need a hug, like you sir, you look like you could use a hug, and then like chase after them or something. Like, oh, there's some nice thunder outside. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but again, you know, it's kind of that idea that like when the person's ready, they will come to you. And so free hugs is a great buffer to be able to connect with people in your community. Because like when I'm doing free hugs downtown on bar night, there's going to be lots of people who are walking by and they're like raising eyebrows and they're just like scoffing under their breath sometimes. And then at the same time, like we're there for them too, because them seeing that is still planting the seed. It's still very important. Ooh, my lights just flickered. Oh, synchronicity. I don't know. Maybe, who knows? But again, you know, like the people who are already on that conscious wavelength will see something like free hugs. They will recognize it and they'll be like, oh yes, I want to connect with you, do free hugs. And then, you know, like when I give them a shift button or however the interaction unfolds, they'll be like, oh my God, like this is exactly what I was looking for. Like this is something I was like consciously or subconsciously or ultra consciously wanting to bring more into my reality. And I'll say like, you know, like, that's the magic of it. That's the synchronicity of it. And they'll be like, hey, come out to like our local meetups that we have at 7 to 9 p.m. at the Ground Up Cafe, 717 Richmond Street on Dundas. In London. It's on Richmond Street. And so even just to kind of show you, again, like with the part of the magic, symbols are a huge thing within magic. And if you can see behind me, like the paradigm shift sigil, that is like a huge thing of magic in itself. And I'll just show you guys real quick as I just kind of take this poster here off the wall real quick, because this is something that within the magic of what I've been creating over the years is the sigil that I've created for Paradigm Shift. And this sigil has a lot of intention and magic put into it. And so what part of the way how this reality works is that symbols actually carry energy. And so you can invest energy into symbols. So when I created the project back in 2009, this symbol like intuitively came to me afterwards, when if you take it and you like map it out over top of like sacred geometry, it fits in like very synchronistically over top of it. But for me, this is just I'm sharing this as an example of magic. So, wow, magic. Did you hear that lightning? Did you hear the lightning and the thunder? It's beautiful. I'm just gonna open my window real quick because I want to be able to like at least like hear the rain. I'm a water element, so the rain is beautiful for me. So we're going to wrap up this broadcast in a bit, guys, but allow me just to kind of move through a couple key points. This is awesome. Okay, so again, when people look at this sigil, I just invite you to look at it just for a moment and just allow yourself to kind of like, you know, before me even saying to people, oh, what does this mean to you? It's always interesting for me to invite people to say or for me to say to people, you know, this is what it means to me. It's always interesting to invite people to say, like, what does it mean to you? So I invite you to just kind of like look at that sigil and just kind of look at it and just kind of like observe how even in this process of observing it from this hyperdelic perspective, you're also hyper-consciously downloading and connecting to the energy of the Paradigm Shift Central community and of the story of the Light Guardians and everything like that. So there's a lot to the sigil. And if you want to look at it some more, you can go to the paradigmshiftcentral.com website. But this is, again, like me creating the sigil was part of the way how I grew the project, because it was a way that I wanted to be able to create like a point for our thoughts to go through. And this sigil actually is something that corresponds to a bunch of us in the Paradigm Shift Central project also having shared dream experiences that we work towards. There's like a shared dream space, a dream tree that we incorporate into our dream class and everything. So again, like this sigil is a very powerful example of magic. And so I just wanted to share that just on the topic of like how symbols are magic, because that's awesome. I hope you guys can hear that. So when we see symbols, that's magic. So again, you know, like the buttons that I share, when people see these, you know, I'll show them, be like, hey, like, do you know what that is? And they'll be like, no, but it looks familiar, right? And like that's basically because, again, a lot of these symbols are encoded into us. They're ancient, and we intuitively actually like know what they mean. And so that's why when I do free hugs, if you look closely, you can see that there's actually the flower of life encoded into the design behind the free hugs. So it's kind of interesting because like when I'm doing free hugs, hardly anyone will notice that, but it's still there. It's still present. So I'm like holding up the free hug sign, doing hugs, and then it's like getting seen by other people. And again, it's just sort of encoded into the intention of me doing free hugs in the first place. So incorporating magic, incorporating an understanding of like how magic works in a very like ancient way in terms of sigils and synchronicity is a part of what I've been called here to do. And a big part of that is also the idea of like a lot of the energy that I carry with me. I resonate very deeply with sort of like this like Merlin kind of like King Arthur and again sort of like elven magic type thing. And this is something that kind of comes forward into the Paradigm Shift Central project, and we have like round table circles and everything like that. And again, the idea that, you know, we're talking about magic here and stuff. And again, it goes into like the Hermetic principles and everything. It's interesting because like Merlin, you know, the guy who we recognize as Merlin is also like recognized as Hermes Trismegistus, who is also recognized as like Hermes, which is also Thoth. Yes. Yeah, Hermes is Thoth, right? I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I think so. and yes. And so maybe. We'll see. I'm pretty sure. Someone double check. I should know this, right? But anyways, so again, you know, bringing forward the magic into this world is something that is like not new, and like the idea that this reality is so hyperdelic predates this time here on Earth. And again, you know, like we are aware of this intuitive magic from an inner sense because we experience it every night within the dream space. We experience what it's like to see this world as a conscious reflection of the mind when we realize that all is mind. And so again, you know, when you are in a dream and you realize that if you think of something, you'll create it, you realize that when you're in this reality, if you think of things, you will create it. And it just takes a little bit of time. And that's like where the idea of patience and virtue and consistency and commitment really come into play. Because like that's kind of the challenge, is that you'll want to create something, but then the universe won't always give it to you right away. And rather than just being like, oh, well, I give up, and you just toss your hat in the ring, instead, that may be the universe kind of testing you to see how much you actually want it. And then, so in the same way, you know, the way how the universe works, it's kind of like intentions, like throwing a boomerang off a rooftop. You throw it off a rooftop, and you have to be there to catch it when it comes back. But if you're just like, it's never coming back, and then you walk off the rooftop, eventually that boomerang is going to come back, but no one's going to be there to catch it. So that's kind of like a simple metaphor of like how intention works that can also come forward through synchronicity. So I said I wanted to talk about like sort of like my elven connection and also the Mystic Spider-Man thing. So I'll do that real quick, and we'll wrap up this presentation within the next 5 minutes. And there's some beautiful rain outside. And again, being like Cancerian, this is awesome. I love the rain and stuff. So it's just like feeling the energy. And again, you know, like that's part of the magic too, is right. It's like realizing that we are the elements. Like, it's like, yeah, okay, we're flesh. We're like this vehicle, we're this trans-dimensional, hyper-dimensional being and stuff. We're the ghost in the shell, wearing this meat suit and everything, this advanced form of spiritual technology that we have. Seriously, the human bodies are like the freaking Cadillacs of the universe, I swear. Like, people would pay like a freaking billion space dollars to probably get one of these if they didn't have one already, which is, again, part of the privilege of, like, I think part of the magic of us being here on Earth is understanding that, like, there's like a lengthy process for many of us to be able to get there, and there's still like a waiting line for some of us who aren't here yet. But part of the reason for that is because it's like also the objective of like entities to exist, not just in the physical, but also like sort of outside the physical, to be able to still assist. And that's where you get the idea of like, people being able to communicate with people beyond life and death, beyond, it's all life, death is not the end of life. It's all life. It's all love. But again, I think spirits, disembodied entities contact us in ways that will sort of like naturally weave into the fabric of reality that come forth through what we recognize as synchronicity. So, what I want to share, I did want to share, okay, like the 1111 and the 906 thing. Let me just share that real quick, and then I'll get into the Elven thing. And I don't know if there are any questions, because I can't fully see that right now. But again, thank you everyone so much for tuning into this, and wherever you are, whenever you are, it's an awesome opportunity to connect with you guys. Okay, so we program our reality. That was something that I kind of became aware of, again, like back in like the 2000s and stuff like that, and late 2000s, and earlier, I guess, right? Like, my awakening happened like early 2000, like after 9/11, and I looked into conspiracies, and then I started watching like all sorts of documentaries and stuff. It was ongoing, but like around 2009 is like when I started the project. Anyways, around 2009 is when synchronicity became so real to me, and I understood that how thoughts created, that I developed my own connection with 9/6 as my synchronicity number, which is interesting because it doesn't even matter here for no one else, but like the Zoom meeting ID actually ends in 9/6 right now, which I didn't even notice until I just said that, which is kind of weird. Again, just kind of another example, but 9/6 was a big resonating number for me, and only later did I actually sort of correlate the idea that it's also the opposite. It's like also the Cancer synchronicity. Like, Cancer is the 6/9, so 9/6 and 6/9 are kind of one and the same. And I am a Cancer, but I got like 9/6 tattooed on my wrist, and so for me, like, that's like my sigil that kind of reminds me of what it represents to me, which is also like this like as above, so below, toroidal matrix, infinity, intention in, purpose out, yin yang type idea. But then I put out the intention of like, okay, 1111s, I can use those as a code, and people talk about seeing 555s, 222s. For me, 9/6 and 609 and variants of it are my synchronicity numbers. So again, like even today when I was going to see Spider-Man, didn't even really look at license plate, and then like the last license plate that I saw before I walked into the theater that drove past me was 9/6. That for me is kind of the universe's way of like giving me a thumbs up or a bro fist and be like, you are on sync. And here is a bit of a gift for you, because when we are on sync, it's kind of like a nice way for the universe giving us a pat on the back and being like, good job, keep going type thing. And also, yeah, like, and so the synchronicity of it is also like us communicating to ourselves from that non-temporal perspective, which is similar to how dreams work as well. We're communicating to ourselves through dreams outside of our present timeline in a lot of ways. But again, it kind of goes into eventually you realize all is sync. But when you specifically have those moments that are clearly synchronicity, again, they're nice little reminders, even just to be present. And that's kind of the idea, is that you eventually kind of go through this process where like 1111s and seeing them go through stages, where the first stage is kind of to get your attention. And then it eventually gets you curious. And then eventually it gets you asking questions. And then eventually it becomes a form of communication that allows you to engage in communication with your non-temporal, higher dimensional self. And also to be able to be affirmation and confirmation and reflection and a tool, So now when I see 9/6, it's actually a valuable thing, because it's me communicating with myself, and it's either just like acknowledgement, or it's also just like a chance to remind myself to be mindful or to have gratitude, or it's like just again, it can be whatever you want it to be or need it to be. You program it to how you wish it to be in that moment. And you can continue to evolve it. So again, as I started becoming aware of this, 9/6 became my synchronicity number and still is. So that's kind of how it works. So I invite people to explore the synchronicity numbers. I know we're just in the last couple minutes, so let me just kind of like wrap up real quick. Okay, so the Legend of Zelda thing I mentioned, I kind of have a connection to that. Part of the idea behind that, and this is the magic, and this is like really magical, we get into this idea that a lot of us existed not just in this lifetime, not just on this physical planet, but also in like higher dimensional realms, not just higher dimensional realms, other realms. And part of those realms, you can get into the idea of like the fairy folk, the elves and the gnomes and sort of like the blue people and everything like that. We are the blue people technically. And so I've always had that kind of connection with Link from Legend of Zelda, the Triforce, which I got on there. And again, he's kind of like the hero of time, but he also kind of like is part elf. He's not an elf, he's from Hyrule, but he also has a pointed ear. What I'm trying to get to is the idea, and I've shared this before, and some people are a little close. I have like part elf ear, so let me just 1 second. Okay, I'm sure you can kind of see it there. Nope, there. Okay, you can probably see it. It's pointed. There you go. Okay, thanks. Okay, okay, I'll do that. Do I want to just finish this story real quick? Okay. Okay, and then we'll get to the question. And the Mystic Spider-Man thing, again, I kind of already explained it before, but it's me doing stuff while dressed up as Spider-Man. Me doing free hugs and helping almost people dressed up as Spider-Man. I can talk about it more, but we'll see how much time we have. So the ear thing, that's important because eventually, like, I got to the point where it's only on the one ear, but I realized as a story that I had to create for myself, that one idea of thinking about it is that that ear is actually there because I created my body to have that ear as a reminder of the idea that perhaps in another lifetime, I actually lived as like a fairy folk or an elven folk. And now I am here in this incarnation to be able to carry with me that story, but more so than that, to be able to ground myself into this reality and to be able to bring forth the magic into this reality. So like that is part of like what I carry with me is the idea that, you know, it's just a pointed ear. It's just a pointed ear. You can end it at that period, or you can expand on this story from a grounded perspective of like, you know, it's just a story, think for yourself and just kind of like stay grounded. But again, that idea that not just me, but some of us have actually lived as like fairy folk, elven folk in other dimensions, perhaps even still parallel to this one. And our mission is to like come forward into this one to help bring forth magic. And my ear was a way for me to remember this. And the fact that it correlates, you know, like the idea that I'm doing like paradigm shift and stuff, it sounds like something that I would do if that was the case. And the other thing I'll just mention real quick, my name, I mentioned Wolf Shield at the beginning. That's because my middle name, Randall, literally translates to Wolf Shield. But for the longest time growing up, I always had a fascination with wolves. And then eventually, like a few years ago, 5 years ago, when I was like, I wonder what my middle name means. And I looked it up and I honestly didn't know what it meant until that point. And it literally meant Wolf Shield. And I was like, whoa, okay, that's a super potent synchronicity. That's super potent. And again, so just going into the idea that our names are magic too, and words and everything like that, it's very, very magical because it's you know, carries a vibration, and carries you know, it creates a template for us to embody. So that's all I'll say now because I know we're getting short on time. So Destiny, if you have a question you want to forward me, and thanks for listening, everyone. You are magic. So thanks. Exactly. Totally. Dig it. Okay. 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 I don't think I necessarily referred to glitches in the Matrix per se, but I'll take sort of just like an interpretation of what that person was asking. So again, you know, the question they're asking is explain what the glitch in the Matrix represents, kind of thing. So I think a glitch in the Matrix can be sort of like a subjective thing, but sometimes we refer to glitches in the Matrix of just like something that's slightly outside of our normal, like sort of regular culture understanding of how reality works. So that's where we get things like deja vus and premonitions and telepathy, thinking about someone and them calling you, and again, you know, just like the synchronicities of meeting people at the right place at the right time. To me, none of those are glitches. Those are actually all part of the framework of how this reality works. And what we recognize is like deja vu is just a byproduct of, again, like this idea that we exist beyond this temporal perspective. And so like, we were kind of talking about this yesterday in our dream class, that in one interpretation of deja vus is kind of like the idea that it's familiar to you because in some way you have actually dreamt about that experience, and the reason why you dreamt about that experience is because it was already coming back to you within your timeline. So sometimes that's what happens is that like we'll dream about a future, we'll forget that we dream about it, and then when it happens we're familiar to it because we already dreamt it, but the reason we dreamt it is because it was inevitably going to happen. So it's like this like cyclical loop and stuff like that. But yeah, hacking the matrix is what I do in terms of like integrating and weaving my way into it. And again, you know, the name Skull Babylon, the reason why I carry that name is because Skull Babylon to me means rebirth from within. Skull is life and death. Babylon is culture. Babylon you can think of as the matrix. Matrix is more than just culture. It is this reality, is this holographic matrix of light, is this interconnected, the interweb that connects us all, Spider-Man style. And again, you know, like just yeah, like realizing that the matrix is something that can be hacked in the sense that our like evolved understanding of it allows us to weave our way into it with more intricacy, more intention, and more effectiveness. And that to me is what hacking is. Hacking isn't necessarily like breaking the system, but it's like working your way within the system with such a degree of awareness that allows you to excel within it. So yeah, glitches, I don't necessarily use the term glitch per se in a normal sense, but I definitely feel that if someone recognizes a glitch, I would encourage them to be curious about that. Because if there are glitches, maybe that's just part of the mystery of the universe trying to show us so that we can continue to ask questions. And mystery is a very powerful thing that keeps things moving forward. So yeah, acknowledge any glitches, but keep on asking questions. So, okay. Thank you. Perfect. Thanks, guys. Go team. Mm-hmm. Totally. Awesome. Totally. Thank you so much. Awesome. And can I just say like a 30-second goodbye to everyone real quick? Perfect. Okay, awesome. Yeah, no, thank you again to everyone tuned into this and for supporting this beautiful summit. And I'm grateful to be a part of such an amazing collection of speakers. And again, in their own routes as speakers or just facilitators within communities. And again, just giving a bonus shout out to everyone who is already directly involved with the Paradigm Shift Central project. You guys are amazing. Keep going out there. And again, this is an invitation for everyone who hears this to check it out and to be as involved as they wish to be. And again, you know, just reminding ourselves that the little things make the big difference. And what I talked about before about the Mystic Spider-Man, if you're interested in that, look up facebook.com/Mystic Spider-Man. But again, that's like me creating this real life superhero aspect of myself, which I have come here to be within my life journey to help activate the superhero within and to remind us, and I'll kind of end it on this point, that the true power that each one of us has is the power of the heart. So that's like what I tell people when I'm out there doing like free hugs as Mystic Spider-Man and stuff like that. So yeah, let's remind each other and keep sparking the light, and ripples create waves, and we are the dream awakening to itself. So much love, guys. Thank you. Psychic free hugs. Woo! Awesome. Sweet. I look forward to connecting with you guys again. Much love, and I'll talk to you guys in the future. Okay. Bye, guys. All right, cool. Awesome. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. For those of you watching this on YouTube, I'll trim the beginning of it, but just again, thanks for tuning in. And yeah, check out more of the information for the New Earth Summit, for the ongoing speakers and the live broadcast at New Earth, New You Now on Facebook. So I'll post a link into that into the comments on the Facebook chat. And yeah, I know I didn't really get to respond to any of the live chat, but I see that there are a bunch of people in there. So thank you guys for tuning in. And yeah, again, if you guys are interested, just jump on the Paradigm Shift Central website, go in the live chat. You guys can hang out with each other. I got to head out, go to the Paradigm Shift meeting. But until next time, much love, and I will see you guys in the future. So peace and wholeness. The Jedi within me sees and honors the Jedi within you. Until next time, guys, see you in the future. Much love.